Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar. Let's wait for a few seconds for everyone to come on. Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar, The Adaptive Mindset in Action, Mindset Change, and a Paradigm Shift. My name is Hock Lai, and I'm a volunteer at the Asia Institute of Mentoring, or AIM for short. And I'm your chair for this evening. I want to welcome you to one of a series of weekly webinar provided by AIM that we have been running since the beginning of May as part of our United Against COVID-19, or UNACOV for short, program. Each week we bring you a new and exciting topic from our host of professional speakers. The topic falls under the following three categories. Tonight's webinar is under career resilience. The next one we have is the crisis management for small business. And the third one is the personal well-being. So just a few housekeeping rules before we start. You will be on listening only mode. No one can see you or no one can hear you. Tonight's webinar will be recorded. There is a Q&A function. So please add your question for the speakers and also vote on the question. You can start asking the question or vote for them as from now. They will be addressed at the end of the speaker's presentation. There's also a chat function where you can add comment if you need any help. Please select all panelists and attendees in the field. In the to field, if you would like everyone to see your comment. Please also let us know what you think of the webinar, as your opinion are important to us. But remember to keep your question under the Q&A function and your comment at the chat function. There will also be a few polls that will be taken by the speaker throughout his presentation. And we look forward to your presentation, your participation. Before I introduce the speaker for tonight, I first would like to play you a short video from our co-founder, Yan Lu and Lawrence, who will introduce you AIM and the UNACOV program.
Hi, my name is Yan-Lu Chow, co-founder of AIM. The current coronavirus pandemic sweeping the globe has turned a health crisis into a financial and economic crisis, causing unprecedented disruptions to our modern way of life. Many people are suffering. That is why we're launching the United Against COVID-19 initiative together with a coalition of partners to support those who are vulnerable. We offer online workshops plus one-on-one mentoring support to help instill resilience and tap sources of hope and optimism for the future. Together, we can emerge from the crisis stronger and with a greater sense of purpose. Come join us on this very meaningful initiative.
Hi, Lawrence here, co-founder of AIM. AIM's mission is focused on evolving mentoring as a culture in Asia, using mentoring as a change and growth catalyst, and providing opportunities to individuals to grow and develop successfully, which in turn creates and cultivates a much more supportive, compassionate, and caring society. The current COVID-19 challenges requires all of us to come together as one team to address these uncertainties and make a positive difference. AIM is honored and proud to be in the forefront of this initiative called United Against COVID-19. Please do join us.
So watch your words, watch your thoughts become your words. Watch your words and they become your action. Watch your action and they become your habits. Watch your habits and they become your character. Watch your character and will become your destiny. This was said by Lao Tzu. So you see, everything starts from how we think and starts from our mind. I'm delighted to introduce you to our speaker for this evening, Chris Chiu, who will be talking on the topic that is very close to my heart, the shifting of mindset. Because we can only lead others if we start to lead ourselves first. Know ourselves and we can shift our mindset to set ourselves for success. Chris is an engineer by training and went on to obtain a master's degree in leadership development. He is multi-talented and spent more than 20 years in the corporate world in various functions with Shell and the Singapore Institute of Management. He has also lectured at the Singapore University of Social Sciences and the Institute of Adult Learning. He is now a coach and conducts workshops on personal mastery, mindset change, interpersonal skills, coaching, mentoring, and facilitation skill. He's an experienced learning and organizational development practitioner who helps individual and organization achieve sustainable performance through a unique and groundbreaking program focusing on mindset shift. So did I say that he is multi-talented? So now it gives me great pleasure to hand you over to Chris. Chris, over to you.
All right, very warm afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for that glowing review in introduction, Hock Lai. All right, so today's webinar, I'll be touching on this topic called mindset shift. And I'm pleased to maybe start off by introducing what I do briefly again. So what I do is I help professionals and organizations transform their thinking, specifically in the area of mindsets. And I do this through a structured program and process, which I use neuroscience, value science, and behavioral science. So you will, I think, get a bit of a glimpse into what this is later as I carry on. So the agenda for today would be as what you see on the screen. I will cover things like what is mindset, why it's important, and understand a bit more about the nature of the mind and mindsets. And then we'll talk a bit about what's the relationship between mindset and behavior. And I will share with you how I use a tool, which is scientifically validated to measure mindsets. And then also a process in which we can use to shift mindsets. And then I'll end off with just sharing some examples of unhelpful mindsets and how we can shift them. So to start off, this idea and this topic about mindset, I thought I'd introduce what self-leadership is all about. And why it's related to mindsets, right? So when I was starting off in my career, I was always wondering to myself, what exactly is self-leadership, right? I mean, we all know what is organization leaders, we've seen leaders in action, but what exactly do we mean when we say self-leadership? What does it mean to be a good self-leader? And so I would like to propose this definition, a very simple definition that I find is simple enough to understand for everyone. So I would define self-leadership as bringing forth our best selves, whether it's in good time or it's in stressful times now, right? So regardless of the situation, we will try and bring forth our best selves. And that, if we do that, we are exercising good self-leadership. And how does this look like in real life, in your day-to-day life? So this will happen whether in your daily encounters, at the workplace, or at home, and how you react and respond to what happens to you, right? Or situations that happen to you, whether somebody gave you feedback, or somebody said something, or something happened. How did you respond in the moment in those situations? And if you exercise good self-leadership, you're able to respond in an empowering and effective way. So good self-leadership to me, if I was to use the analogy or the metaphor, I will use a tree as a metaphor for self-leadership. And self-leadership is the roots. It starts at the root of the tree. And good self-leadership is about personal mastery. And if we exercise good self-leadership, it will lead to actually good people leadership and good people engagement, because we are engaging well with other people. And then that in turn will lead to effective family or organization or even the community leadership and culture. So everything really starts at the root. In this case, good self-leadership. So I'm borrowing this image from Yen Lu because I find it very effective, and it's very relevant to this idea of personal mastery, right? And self-leadership. So Socrates in the West said, know thyself. And the other person in the East, Lao Tzu, that's what you heard earlier, said that mastering others is strength, but mastering yourself is true power. So this goes to show that even the philosophers and the wise people of the East and West agree on the same thing. Self-leadership and personal awareness is very important. And very often, even though it's very important, right, we are very often not aware that we tend to think in a certain way or have a certain mindset about things, right, and about people. While we know it's important, we're sometimes not aware that we tend to think in that certain way, and that certain way may not be effective. So if we say that good self-leadership starts with good self-awareness, the first thing I would like to share with you today, and particularly today, is the awareness of our mindsets. How can we gain better awareness of our mindsets? So if you like to help someone actually change his or her mindset. So the other day, or I've had interactions with other people, and people say that I really like to change this person's mindset. Or you get in companies, right? You get the boss saying that my staff really need to change their mindset. Right? You hear things like that. How do I get my staff to change his or her mindset? So if you want to help someone else do that, you got to do this. You got to help that person get to know him or herself better first. That's the starting point. So that brings us to what is mindset, right? So if I were to ask you what is mindset, yeah, some people struggle how to define that. But I will give you a definition which I think is simple enough and describes what mindset is. And simply, I would say that mindset is our way of thinking, our attitudes and beliefs about ourselves and the world. So that is a very simple definition that I believe describes what mindset is. So let's do a little quick poll now with everyone about mindset, right? So let me launch this poll. So you should see the poll coming up on your screens. And just, why is mindset important? So you can answer more than one choice. Okay, I'm seeing the results coming in. Okay, I think we have almost everyone voted, 76, 78%, 80%. Okay, so let me end the poll and share the results. All right, so you should be able to see the poll results on your screens. And the top vote goes to the second one. My mindset affects how I feel and what actions I take or do not take. That's fantastic, right? In fact, I think the rest of you also voted for the first one and the third one. And they are also very true, right? They are important because the mind is really the CPU, and it controls everything. And the right mindset can help us cope with life's challenges. So all of these reasons why mindset is important. And I'm quite glad that most people pick the second one, because that's what I'm going to talk about more in my subsequent slides. So let me stop share. And talk a little bit about the power of mindset, right? Why mindset is so important. So you said that, yeah, mindset affects how we behave, our actions that we take. And it's absolutely true, because if you think about mindset, right, another simple way to think about mindset is really our self-talk. What's actually going through your head, and the words and language that you use as you encounter daily situations, or when you're working on a problem, everything, we are constantly have these voices in our head. So when I was younger, I was always wondering, when people say I have voices in my head, I think cannot really quite catch it, right? Is it really, do I have really a voice in my head? And as I grew up, then I started to gain a greater awareness that, in fact, actually, there is actually a voice in there. It's just that I don't hear it, but there's thoughts going on in my head. And those thoughts are actually the self-talk. And self-talk affects how you feel, how we feel, right? Because if you think that you are no good, you're not going to feel no good. You're not going to feel good about yourself. And it will translate to some body sensations. How we feel has a body sensation or feeling to it. And that would then lead to the actions, right? What you do, our hands, our words, the things we say. If we are not happy, we will not feel good, we may then do things that we regret later on, right? And vice versa. If you feel good, then you will say good things. So it has an effect on how you feel and what you do. And as well as what you don't do as well. So sometimes your action is you don't do anything. So that by itself is an action as well. So let me just share this really short video, right, about this mindset, the self-talk.
So what do you think? Honestly? Yeah, I think you look kind of awesome. Yes. You may not realize it, but the person that you spend most of your time with is you. And you say a lot of things to yourself. Some of them encouraging. And some of them, seriously, you're an idiot. Some of them not so encouraging. It's perfectly normal to say the occasional tough thing to yourself. A small amount of self-criticism keeps you trying hard to do the best that you can. But it's a real worry when you speak to yourself harshly too often. That can lead to some real emotional or mental problems. What we say to ourselves and how we think about things that happen directly affects how we feel. In fact, we often don't even realise what we're thinking and are only aware of our feelings, being sad or happy or irritated or ashamed. But it's our thoughts about events that lead to our feelings. Ben, I'm sorry. We're not working out. You're just not tall. So this is goodbye. Wow, how does that make me feel? Well, that depends on how I think about what just happened. If I think she just dumped me, I might feel sad. If I think, hey, she said I was short, she's mean, I might feel angry. If I think, well, we clearly weren't right for one another, I might feel relieved. So now we're going to look a bit more closely at how the way we think about events affects not just how we feel, but also what we do as a result.
Okay, so that was a real little bit of a humor video there, but it's really true, isn't it? How we think, the thoughts we have, will lead to our feelings, and then that may then lead to a behavior. So this is the first model I want to share with you. It's a really simple model, but I think it puts across the point very clearly that mindset, which is how we think, affects our behavior, our words and action, and that behavior, that word and actions, has an impact. It has an impact on ourselves, and it also has an effect. It can have an effect on other people, and further ripple on to the effects to our organization that we work in, or the community and the world. So really everything, if you look at this model, it starts with yourself, right? How you think going to affect what you do, and what you do is going to have an effect on other people and the world at large. So this is the first model about mindset. Now, I'd like to share a little bit more about the mind-brain, right? What actually happens in this thing between our ears, this brain of ours. And I just want to share with you that there's this thing called the meaning-making machine. Our brain is a meaning-making machine. We are constantly trying to make meaning from our experiences. So if you look at this picture here, the input that we take in from our environment, from other people and our life experiences, it's filtered through all these things that's happening inside us, the beliefs, our perceptions, our values, maybe that we were brought up in, the culture that we're in, our previous memories of what happened to us. All these are filtered in the brain. And our brain then makes up stories and interpretations based on those previous experiences, those values and beliefs that we have. And the output of that is what I call a perspective. We would then have a certain perspective about that person or that situation. And this perspective is also called a value judgment. So let me illustrate this with an example. And if you could just take a bit of time to just read through this very short scenario, right? So you have John and you have Paul, work colleagues, teaching staff at a local university. John comes to Paul's desk and asks for help on all these things. But when Paul has a request for John to help, John will say he doesn't know, he's not able to help. So what happened is that the other day, Paul was then talking to another friend, Billy, and Paul says to Billy, John is always coming to me for help, whenever, he's stuck with something. But when I ask him for help, he doesn't reciprocate. How do I deal with John? Right? So this is actually a real scenario, right? I was coaching somebody on this scenario, and this actually happened. And Paul is asking me, hey, how do I deal with John, right? So if you were to examine this through the model or the lens that I just shared earlier, what is Paul's story that he has formed in his head with regards to his situation with John? So This is Paul, right? Paul is going through all these things in his mind. What could be his interpretation, his story that he has made up, and his perspective that he has come to regarding that situation? So you may have some interpretations of your own as you read through that case study or that scenario. So let me just share possible interpretations, yeah? So Paul may say to himself, or he may think to himself, John only takes, he doesn't give. John is a selfish guy. John needs to learn to be independent. Or Paul may have another perspective that which is Paul, I should help John if I can. And could also be, if I say no to John, I feel guilty. All these are possible interpretations and stories that Paul could be making up in his mind and his perspective about John and the situation. So back to our definition earlier, that our mindset is our way of thinking about our attitudes and beliefs about ourselves and the world, right? So as you shown in the example earlier, there we can have a self-view about ourselves, which forms our mindset, and then we can have a world view, which is our view of the situation and other people. So this is the second model I just want to share with you when we look at mindset. So self-view is how we see ourselves. So as in the situation with John and Paul, Paul may see himself in any of these in any of this perspective, right? He may see himself as he feels guilty, or he may see that he should help John if he can. So these are examples, are areas we will look at when we look at the self-view, our self-esteem, our courage, and a big one is our expectations, what expectations we have about ourselves and other people, our roles and responsibilities, our purpose and our goals. And the other side of the mindset would be our worldview, how we see the world and other people around us, how we relate to other people, and how we relate to problems and priorities in our lives, how we relate to processes as well, how things are done. For example, rules, right? Are we someone that think we should follow rules, or some people, they have a view that we shouldn't follow rules, we should try to break them if we can. So these are all perspectives, the worldview. So our value judgment or perspectives, the good news is science has allowed us to measure it. So thanks to science, we can now measure this. So how to gain awareness of your mindset, right? So first step I would like to suggest is take a mindset measuring instrument, right? Try to understand your own current mindset. And the tool that I use is called a VQ. It's called a value judgment quotient. And it's actually a scientific measurement of how we think. And it has 36 dimensions. And I will go briefly into it so that you have an idea of what this tool is and what it does. So the VQ profile is based on what we call, is actually based on former axiology, which is value science, developed in the 60s and has been validated over the past 50 plus years, integrates neuroscience and psychology, and it measures how well a person thinks from 36 different perspectives. And we can use it for development and transformation. So this is what it looks like in a bigger view. And I will share with you some examples of the impact that our perspectives may have and what it measures. So, for example, it can measure the level of our empathy towards other people, how we tend to view other people, our perspective on action orientation, our mindset on risk and uncertainty, mindsets towards change, our courage to express opinions or take a stand, whether we have perfectionist tendencies or pleaser tendencies, hard to say no, procrastinator tendencies, or self-doubt in ourselves, or feelings of obligation that we have to do things, even though we don't feel, we don't really want to do it, but we feel obligated. So those could be some examples of the impact of the perspectives. So what the report reveals are these little things, the red ones. The red ones are anything that is not green, all right? So anything that's either yellow or orange or red. Those are called our biases. And the lower the score, of course, the higher our bias. And these high biases are actually habituated. And as in most things, we are usually more greatly affected by the biases, and it influences a lot of what we do and how we feel. But the good news is also we have what we call assets, the ones in green. And this represents a balanced way of thinking, our own balanced way of thinking, where we are neither too extreme to the left or too extreme to the right. Those are our assets, and we tend to naturally think in that manner on those perspectives. So another quick video, very short one, to help you understand like what is a bias, right? What is a bias, and why is an unconscious habit and drives our actions and impact that we have.
Hey, how's the spreadsheet?
It's looking really good.
What's in B1 here?
B1's the cost of the goods.
Yeah, change
sold.
that to, it needs to be green.
Green?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, red, actually.
Red.
Accounting likes it red.
You want a red?
Yeah, red.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's do red.
Yeah, okay. But what size is that?
That's 11.
Change, it needs to be 12.
12.
So-
12's
yeah,
more
12.
round. 12.
Change it to 12, yeah.
Let's do 12. Okay. Yeah.
And font, what font are you using?
Arial.
It needs to be Helvetica.
Helvetica. Okay.
Helvetica.
Where's the Helvetica?
It's up here, font,
Font down.
down,
Okay.
scroll,
Scroll.
H,
Scroll.
Helvetica.
Helvetica. Helvetica. Okay.
Did you talk to Mark?
Okay, so as you can see from the video, I hope it's obvious enough, right? That the person on the left is micromanaging, all right? So that is actually a result of a bias that the person has. So it can happen, it can turn out that way. And other examples could be, other biases can result in us feeling irritated, and we then overdo it by criticizing. Or the reverse, we become too quiet. We don't speak up even though we have a different view. So all these are possible biases that then affects our behavior. So moving on. So part one was about measurement, right? How do we measure? How do we gain awareness of the biases that we have and our own mindsets? So step two, in terms of gaining awareness of our mindset, I would like to suggest is practice mindfulness. And so let me do another quick poll here. So you should be seeing this on your screens. You can choose more than one. Okay, so I think let's end the poll now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's share the results. So you should be able to see this. And yeah, I think most of you have chosen 1, 3, and 4. And the least of you, not that many people chose number 2, which is quite true, because when you are mindful, you are not necessarily happy, right? So let me stop share and talk a little bit about mindfulness. So I'm going to just share 2 definitions of mindfulness. So according to Alan Lang, which is a professor in the university at the US, who actually came upon this concept, or this term called mindfulness many years ago. And from her research, she is defining it as a flexible state of mind in which we are actively engaged in the present. So we are constantly and actively in the present and actively engaged, right? Not thinking about what I just did yesterday or what I did in the morning. So you're constantly focused on the present and noticing new things. And the other guy, a very well-known guy, is Kabat-Zinn. Kabat-Zinn came from another angle. He started research into mindfulness from mindfulness-based stress reduction part of it. And he defined it this way, that mindfulness is an awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So if you were to compare Alan Langer's definition and Kabat-Zinn, can you pick up that both have the same keyword here? And that keyword is present, right? So paying attention on purpose to the present moment. So if you think of mindfulness, you don't think about the past or the future, you're just really focused on the present. So I thought I would like to just share a really quick story about myself when I was not mindful, but I'm also mindful that I don't have a lot of time left. So I think I'll skip this in view of the time, and I will move on to the last part. I'll just share you some tips about the benefits of mindfulness. So mindfulness allows us to choose to respond and not to react. Because if we are aware of what's going on in our head and how we are feeling, then we can kind of stop ourselves, right? Not to react immediately and process that inside of us first before we respond. So examples, when you see somebody's eyes closed when you're making a presentation, you don't immediately react and single that guy out. Or when someone challenges you, you don't immediately react and defend. You hear out what he has to say first. So it allows you to examine your assumptions and biases, which may not be correct. And also, when you do all that, the result is you connect better with other people. So practice number 1, I know that Yen Lu is a big fan of this. Meditate, right? So first practice is to strengthen your mindfulness. You find time to meditate daily, either daily or weekly. And what you do is just focus on your breath. And you don't think about the past or the future. And if you do, you then come back and concentrate back on your breath. So let me just do another quick poll. To ask you, how often do you practice mindfulness or meditation? Okay, ending in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Share results. All right, so if you see this on your screens, I think majority are the first two, once or several times a day, a couple of times a week. Okay, so less often. Okay, I think the majority is less often. All right. and some of you never as well. So it's perfectly fine. I think some of us do that, some of us don't. But what I would encourage is give it a try. Give it a try. It actually helps you focus a lot better, and it actually helps calms you down as well. So if you don't meditate, right, the other thing you can do is do this. You can practice grounding. So because we always get lost in the past or the future, always constantly thinking about what's next or what I just did. What you can do is to ground yourself. Focus on the present, in what is happening in your body in the moment. As you are walking, feel that you are walking. Feel your feet on the ground. When you're sitting, feel that your bum against the chair. And when you are standing, feel your feet against the floor. So focusing on your sensations in the moment will actually help, and you are actually in a way practicing mindfulness. And you can do this anytime. All right, I posted this on LinkedIn a while ago, and just to segue into the next part, which is Nelson Mandela, right? I mean, we all know him, and when he was freed from prison many years ago, the reporter asked him, how do you survive all those years in prison? So Nelson Mandela said, I was not surviving. I was preparing. So can you notice that what Nelson Mandela did when he said that was he was reframing. He was reframing his entire experience. He was not merely surviving, he was preparing. I think just like in the COVID situation we are now in, a lot of us may be thinking, I'm just surviving. But if you were to flip that around and reframe your situation to be, I'm not surviving, but I am preparing, for the post-COVID world, and how am I going to work and succeed in that environment? You are doing reframing. You're changing how you think. So the third part of changing mindsets, how to change mindset, is use a structured process to reframe your thinking. And what I do is this 1, 2, 3 step. So what you want, number one is define what you want and why you want it. And then second part is figure out what is your biases that hinder you, right? How are your ways of thinking that hinder you? And then thirdly, what are your ways of thinking that can actually help you, your assets? Can you tap on your assets to help you as well? So 1, 2, 3 steps. And I would like to just sort of end off with sharing just maybe 2 disempowering mindsets. So the first mindset is very, very much, all of us have it. I think most of people have it. And when I do my coaching, I'll always encounter this, right? It's the critic mindset. I think a lot of us have this in us, myself included. And this actually is explained by you are critical of other people or others. It can play out this way, meaning you expect a certain standard from other people, and they don't produce it, and you are very critical, and you are critics, and you become even, and it can escalate, become even more critical. And the other way it can play out is that you are critical of yourself. You expect a certain standard from yourself, and if you don't meet that, you feel really frustrated with yourself, really angry at yourself, and really depressed even with yourself. So examples of, I'm putting 2 examples here, and one example is that for me, it happened like when I was expecting, I was preparing for a meeting, and that meeting didn't happen, and that meeting didn't happen because of my own fault. I saw the wrong timing, and when I went into the meeting, there was nobody there. I was totally got a shock, and I became very critical of myself, because I expected better of myself, and I actually got really quite angry at myself. So that was a critic mindset in me. And another example could be in virtual meetings, right? We're all doing virtual meetings now, and if things don't work, right? The technology doesn't work, or just something just gets broken, or things don't work, and you may find that you may flare up. Right? You may be very critical of other people, maybe critical of IT, critical of yourself even. It could play out that way. Yeah. So this is one mindset that is not helpful. And on the VQ perspective, the VQ perspective that I mentioned earlier, this is actually very high on meeting expectations. So if you're overly high on this, you may play out this way. You have a critic mindset. So how do you shift that? So one way is you shift into a learning mindset. So the trick is reframing again, right? How do you reframe your mind, the way you think? You have to reframe it into a learning mindset. So to reframe it, you ask yourself questions. You change your thoughts by asking yourself questions. So if you are in an incident where you are self-critical or you are critical of others, you can then, and then it didn't turn out well, you can ask yourself, what can you learn from that incident? Or in that moment, even better, if you can stop yourself and ask yourself, what do I know about myself and my ability to grow and become better? I'm actually shifting my way of thinking, right, to a learning mindset. And another way you can shift your mindset is to shift to a valuing yourself mindset. So you can ask yourself, if things don't work out for you, right, how can you forgive yourself and others? How can you let go? How can I let go? And it's okay not to be right all the time, right? To tell yourself that. And the third way, I would say, that can be helpful as well. If this person has this as the strength, as his or her strength, is to shift to a nurturing others mindset. So you basically are practicing empathy. You are asking yourself, what is this person experiencing right now? As that situation is unfolding, how can I recognize or appreciate? What can I recognize or appreciate about this person? You are actually shifting the way you think about that situation, because when you ask yourself this question, your mind is then searching for an answer. And the answer to that question, when you are searching for that answer, you will not be sucked into that critic mindset. So this is why it works. Okay, the next mindset, or the last mindset I want to share you is that this worrier mindset. Sometimes we're worrying too much, right? Some people tend to have that habit. And it's either they are unfamiliar with something new, like when I first started facilitating, I have this worry as well, or for facilitating online, or even taking on a new job or a new role. So what can you do to shift that mindset? You can shift by adopting a valuing yourself mindset. Think about your own strengths instead. What are my strengths that I can use to help me? So if you just think that way, then you don't focus on your limitation, but think of your own strength. What are your own strengths that you can use? And you can also shift to what we call a growth mindset, which I think a lot of people know. What can you learn? Ask yourself, what can I learn and improve, even if I face setbacks? And what is the next step I can take to get me closer to what I want? So it's all about asking yourself different set of questions, if you notice that. When you do that, you are reframing your mind. So I kind of like to end by sharing this quote from Gandhi, which is someone I admire a lot. And really, we must become the change we want to see. And it's up to us if we want to make things better for ourselves. And we can't rely on other people. Change starts with us. So for just my last slide, so this is my contact details at the bottom. So feel free to take a picture. And for further self-organization development, this is a program that I run. And it's a 1 day or 2 half-days program, 2 half-days online. And there will be, this is the main core of it, but there are additional modules for people who want to take the VQ assessment, or they want to do coaching, whether group or one-to-one, and with additional access to an online LMS with the material. So I would kind of end here, and I'm a little bit over time, so very sorry. But I'm happy to take questions now. So perhaps Hock Lai, you could, maybe see if there are any questions from the audience.
Thank you, Chris, for a very insightful presentation. I will quote the Buddha again. The Buddha calls our restless mind the monkey mind.
Yes.
And today you have given us some insight and maybe take our first step towards try to tame this monkey mind. So thanks a lot. We should open up for questions. We do have some questions now in there, and maybe I can start by the first question that I have here. You mentioned that mindset affect our behavior. What about the other way around? Can our behavior affect our mindset? Does it go the other way?
Yeah, that's a very good question actually. And I've been asking myself that, and I would say that to some extent, yes, it can, but the jury is still out, in my opinion, that the other way around, which is the behavior, conclusively, scientifically say that the behavior would affect the mindset. Now, I think an interesting work that was done by, I think, Amy Cuddy, and if you have not watched her TED Talk, you can go watch it. But her research has said that is going a lot into what is called power poses. So she says that if we change our behavior, our pose, right? So assuming that you're going to an interview and you're not feeling confident, but then you change your pose to, like a Superman pose or something that's very, open-ended, very open body language, and give your feel and open your arms, right? Your body, stand straight. That behavior can affect how we feel. So it affects, and there's probably some hormonal changes that detect in us when we do that. So that can then affect how we feel. But I would say that then that may make us feel more confident. And then we may start to say to ourselves that, hey, I can do this, I can do this. So to some extent, it may affect the self-talk. But I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't go to the extent and say that it would definitely affect our mindset.
So I thank you, Chris. But also, there's also another question that is quite related. So, for example, if we are not in the right frame of mind, so we are stressed, we are anxious, we feel affected by what is surrounding us, and so emotionally we're not up to it. So, how can we correct ourselves into the right frame of mind to handle the situation around? How can we do that? Could it be by changing our behavior first, because we cannot change our mind yet? Can we do something about behavior first and then turn it around? Would that happen?
Yeah. So I mean, if someone who's emotionally stuck in a certain situation, of course there are things that they can do in terms of their behavior, just to switch that state, or so-called the initial mental state, from feeling like very down, very depressed, and then to just go for a walk and just go out, for example, or just stand up and move around. So that gets the body moving and the blood circulating, and then we feel a bit better. And then that may then help us move on. But I think to be truly sustainable, I think the mindset or the self-talk needs to change. And the way to change that, and as what I've shared, is you need to ask yourself a different set of questions instead of being stuck in that previous mode of thinking. So that it needs to be habitual. It needs to develop into a new habit. Yeah, I would agree that you can't do it immediately. May not do it immediately.
So far, Chris, you talk a lot about individually how we can practice mindfulness, change our mindset, be aware of our biases. But how can this kind of mindset training affect or help the individual? I mean, the organization. How can it help organization if what we are doing mostly is on the individual basis?
So I believe that we need the change, right, needs to start at the individual level, at the self level, because organizations are made up of people, and teams are made up of people. So if you were to look at it that way, if you want the organization to be effective, we need to look at the people and we need to look at teams. And the starting point is of when you talk about mindset training and all this is actually we start with the individual first. Because if you look at even leadership competency frameworks, there's that self-leadership, there's that people leadership, and there's business leadership, right? So if you don't have a good self-leadership, then it's going to bound to affect the team leadership as well as the organization leadership. Yeah. So I would say you need to still start at the individual level and work on that as well, while you work on the team and the organization.
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. We have run out of time. There's still a few more questions. So what I would suggest is for those people who still have questions, Chris' contact information will be sent to you in our EDM. So you can go ahead by email or all this, still write to Chris, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer those questions. So I just need few more minutes of your time to ask for your feedback. No, this is not the one. Okay, so we have, sorry, we have a couple of minutes of tonight's webinar. May I ask that you take the time to complete a short survey. It takes less than a minute. It can be accessed by the VI code, QR code on the left of the screen. The link will be posted in the chat, and it will be very much appreciated if you could provide a valuable feedback to us. If you are interested to be involved in the UNACOV program as a mentor, a mentee, or a volunteer, please visit our website and the QR code on the right of the screen too. Please comment in the chat what you thought of tonight's webinar, as your testimonial will motivate us to continue to improve. In the next week's webinar, you will hear from Sam Neo on the topic of supercharging your personal brand. Please look out for our future webinars on our website, emails, Facebook, and LinkedIn pages. A big thank you to Chris, to all our UNACOV partners. Without them, this would not have been possible, as well as each and every one of you for being patient with us and who has taken the time to attend. And I hope all of you have a great evening. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.